So it's time to put the starter motor in the K. This is the conventional starter motor. And if you go to Napa and you order this, this is what you get. You can't get these from Napa rebuilt anymore. These old starters, there were two versions. This is the regular horsepower, which I think is like 1.4. The other one is 1.7 horsepower, and these field coils are just a little bit longer, which is how you can tell them apart. Of course, it's also heavier. Here is one of the high horsepower. You can see how the field coils are a little bigger. These things weigh, 15, 18 pounds. This one is certainly much easier to install. This one, by the way, is 1.9 horsepower. So it's smaller, lighter, and has more horsepower. You'll notice though that the connections are different. Where they used to be up here, they have moved them over to here. And, when we install this, you're going to have the block pretty close right into here. This is there. The Napa 1083. Some time ago I bought a new Dakota starter motor, also from Napa. And well, it's identical to this thing. This was only about 75 bucks, which I think is just fine for a new starter. The core charge is $2, so they'll give you $2 for this thing. It's not worth even hauling it in. And here was another mini starter that I came across. There. You see those connections are a little different. So let's pop this puppy in, see what we got. Well, it turns out you cannot just bolt this in. You see right here? That hits the block. And you can't get your bolts to line up. So you take this off, and you see you got two nuts. I already took them off. And then this piece will come off. But it's got a locking tab on the bottom to prevent it from rotating. But that's exactly what we want to do, is we want to get this thing rotated up like that. Gets it further away from the block and gets it closer to the terminals. So we're going to drill a hole down here so we can catch this bolt at an angle. Let's see if that works. There you see we drilled a new hole, which allowed us to rotate it. We had to keep rotating that terminal, enlarging holes and turning into ovals in order to get that clearance. There's that clearance we're talking about. We just got a little bit, but this will work. We can get the bolts into the starter, and there's just a slight clearance to the block. So it's not a direct bolt in, but you can make it work. And since you can't get the other motor, unless you get yours rebuilt, you're going to have to make it work. So what's new today? We are ready to do the first test fire of the rebuilt engine. I don't have the alternator hooked up, but I do have the fan hooked up, and we'll go see what we've got. Obviously, I forget to tighten radiator clamps. Oh, and by the way, that little valve down there at the radiator drain, you screw it in to close it. Well, of course I had it screwed out. Then we've got coolant, engine oil, 4-quart of transmission. We'll add some fresh fuel in the tank, and then see what she talked to us. So, when I turn the ignition on, even when it's dead cold, the temperature gauge just goes boink right over to hot. And that tells me that the temperature sender line has found a ground somewhere. Well, on these air-conditioned cars, the temperature sender is under the air conditioning compressor. And you see the wire that comes off the top of it? That's the sender wire. Well, I'll bet you dollars to donuts it is hitting the bottom of the air conditioning compressor. I've seen that before. And that's where it's getting its ground. Probably means I did not screw the sender in deep enough. So, this ugly old stupid RV2 is going to have to get loosened up and pulled up enough so that I can get under there and work on things. Another thing, you see that nut right there? It's on the back of the bolt that holds the top bracket of the power steering pump. On later models, they welded that in there. On this one, you know, if you undo the bolt, that nut just, it's free and loose. Well, you know where they're going to go? Yep, they're going to fall into the V there of that power steering bracket. And the only way you can get them out is to remove the bracket and the pump and get it up where you can turn it sideways, and then you can get the nut out. So be deft with your little fingers there. The reason I say that is because we're going to have to take that bolt back out in order to get this compressor loose enough that I can get a ½ inch of rise out of it. Maybe, sorta. Have I told you how much I don't like air conditioning? So, I've got the compressor loose and managed to raise it up. And you can see that I've taken the wire off of the sender. And then I've turned on the ignition, the temperature gauge does not peg. So that tells me there's no short in the wire, and that the problem probably was hitting the bottom of the air conditioning compressor. So what I need to do is screw that sucker in there more. And then won't it be fun trying to get the air conditioning compressor bolts to line back up. One step at a time. And just to be thorough, this is a jumper from ground to the sender cap, and then I turned on the key and the gauge pegs. So we're on the right track, and all this makes sense. So here it is, screwed down as far as it'll go, and I put the wire back on it. Well, here's the air conditioning compressor all tightened down. And where is it? Where is it? Okay, there she is down there. That's the sender now that it's screwed down, and I put a little shim in here, and I have clearance between the sender and the bottom of it. So let's just see what the temperature sender says. Car's dead cold. What's the temperature gauge tell me? Well, I see the gas gauge moving, and the temperature gauge does not move, just a little off of C. Problem fixed. Joyous huzzah. One of the other problems I have with this car is the backup lights are on all the time. The key is on. So the console has the switch for the backup lights. I imagine it's gummy and stuck. So it's on my list of things to fix. So we're going to get to the backup light switch. We'll remove the ashtray, which in 64 is real nice because they went to these tabs. 60, 61, 2, and I don't remember if 63. These tabs are not secured, and so the little pieces fall down, and they are something to. Anyway, with the there, that little gizmo with the wires coming off of it is the backup light switch. I'm thinking I can get to it from here. And here's your switch. I see the old grease. I suspect it just needs a cleaning. Lordy, putting that switch back in is an ordeal. Not a lot of room to work. Not easy to get to. And here's the spare switch. See, the doggone thing is spring-loaded. Well, you're trying to screw it in this way against the spring load, and that is the little bitty bolt, which, oh, you can drop in there. So I ended up putting a wire tie there around the switch body to depress the button, and then I could get it in. But you know, that wasn't the first thing I thought of. So I've been here 45 minutes. Lordy. Well, let's just see how she works. Ignition on. Park. Reverse. Neutral. Drive to 1. Neutral. Park. Let's call that a winner.